Hello, cannedcream here, CC for short, and today I would like to talk to you about Princess Celestia's rule. Or to be exact, the 1,000 years she ruled alone. This was a topic brought to my attention on last week's video, and in a way acts as a sort of continuation of what we've already talked about. So if you haven't already watched the previous video, I suggest doing that now. I'd say I wait, but no, I'm not going to. So the specifics of the question were why it seemed as though Celestia's solo rule was so much more peaceful, when previously she and her sister were facing off against the likes of Discord, Sombra, and Tyrek. Well, I suggest that Celestia's time also wasn't quite as quiet as it seemed. And my first bit of evidence comes from the very villains I just named, as each one of them shares a very common trait. We never heard of a single one of them until they became a threat again. When Discord was freed, we didn't know about Sombra or Tyrek. When Sombra returned along with the Crystal Empire, we didn't know anything about Tyrek. And when Tyrek escaped from Tartarus, Celestia said nothing about whatever the next major villain Equestria was going to face. History has shown that the princess likes to play her cards close to her chest, and doesn't tend to be liberal with information unless she absolutely needs to be. This is a trait we've seen in her since episode 1, where she directly avoids sharing her knowledge of Nightmare Moon's return, as well as the fact that she needed Twilight to learn the magic of friendship in order to defeat her. While it would have been so much easier to directly tell her, Celestia instead sets up a series of events to test whether or not her student could learn these lessons on her own, a tactic that she would later repeat for the Crystal Empire. What I'm saying is that Celestia clearly does not like to talk about the dangers and the trials that she has faced, unless they happen to be of immediate concern. So this may very well have meant that there have been dozens of monsters and warlords and invaders that we've never heard about because they've never been seen since their first attack. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit darker because, come on, this is my channel, we always find our way back here somehow. The observation that Celestia must have been much weaker after losing her sister was brought up, and so the logical question of why we haven't seen nor heard of any villains from this period of time was asked. Well, there are really only two possible answers to this, aren't there? Either A, Celestia ruled in total peace for 1,000 years, which, given the turbulent nature of Equestria both before and after Luna's departure and return, doesn't seem very likely. Or B, Celestia knew she was weaker ruling alone, and thus was far more absolute with opposing threats to her land and people. Look at it like this. For every threat that came up before, Celestia found a non-lethal way of dealing with it. Discord was sealed in stone. Sombra was banished beneath ice. Tyrek was sent to Pony Hell, which is still kind of extreme, but at least he wasn't dead. Even Nightmare Moon was banished off-world. But now that she was alone, those monsters and creatures and tyrants that coveted what the Royal Sisters had would likely see this as the time to strike. So in response, maybe Celestia chose not to spare their lives, to instead act with swift and righteous justice. Not out of corruption, and not out of some sick pleasure derived from it, but because she was determined to see her kingdom safe by any means. Maybe she felt she needed to send a clear message that, even if she was alone, she would still defend her lands by any means necessary. Perhaps this is why the only returning villains that we've seen have been over 1,000 years ago, back when Celestia had her sister and their combined connection to the elements of harmony, when they had the power to give the luxury of mercy. And maybe that's why now that Luna has returned and Twilight and the main six are embodying the elements, that mercy can be given again. Now, it is possible that we will one day see a villain from Celestia's time alone, and my theories could be totally invalidated. But for the time being, and taking in everything we know about Equestria and Celestia herself, there might just be some credit to the idea that we don't see any enemies return from Celestia's time alone because she didn't dare give them the chance to return. But what do you think, dear listener? Is there any credit to this idea, or was Celestia's lone reign actually just totally peaceful? Whatever your thoughts, please post them down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always,
Stay pony, my friends.